Okay, so yesterday, since we discussed how to set up anything from scratch and everything, so to anything, I mean, to master anything, we need certain basics now. So we can write, we can learn anything in Playwright. We can use by extreme practice and everything. We'll know much about the Playwright and its interfaces and its applications and everything we'll know in and out. But what is the thing we need to? What is the communication language we are using in the Playwright, or what is the language we are actually using with Playwright to do our functions or features, test our features? So thing we are using is Python. So there are few things which we need to learn. Some basics, pretty much basics. Like so, usually what we call is when these things is like Python for beginners, or just boring stuff with Python. That's like automate boring stuff with Python or anything. We call it that. So let's go through some topics in Python which will be useful in Playwright. Pretty much which is useful in Playwright. So I'm not going to dig deeper or anything. Anything which is necessary, which we have future applications, I'm going to use only explain those topics. That's it. Okay. Fine. Okay. So mm, for let's take some application or anything. So you need like for everything you can't denote or do anything. So you have to you always have some dynamic data or like element locators or anything. Will take certain things like okay, we'll take always two or three functionalities. E-commerce is very pretty much uh, e-commerce is something which everyone knows. We'll take three things. One is login. Second one is search. Third one is checkout. So if you take any of those three things, like login out, so what normally happens is visible now. Fine. So when you take any login functionality or anything in search way, so like you take anything like Amazon. So if I take Amazon or anything, any feature, so there will be login, there will be search, or there will be many things which are on the page. So how? So in our mind, we know that what is what and what is what. Like we know that okay, this is header page, this is this thing. So we know that okay, in our mind, first we need to go to search. Then if we search certain thing like iPhone 1301, yeah, you're going to select something like this. Okay, you're going to select something like that, and you're going to test it whether everything in the flow is working or not. So you're going to do these things, but as I said, the only thing you need to understand from our side is we are working with is a compiler. You know what is a compiler? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, fine. So compiler is nothing but it translates whatever the code you're writing into low level or byte code, which the system understands. So anything you write, suppose if I say in some other language, if I say exactly the terms like what is your name in English, I ask somebody to translate it in Hindi, they'll say that तुम्हारा नाम क्या है? So exactly that's a translation, true translation. If I miss what is name, if I say what is name, then it won't be translated as okay, this person is saying what is name. So if a two translator will be there, he will say that naam kya hai? Naam kya? That's it. So it will be an empty thing. So computer is such thing or the system is in such thing where it has to understand everything and anything. So we have to be picture perfect. So compiler is that person. It is a true translator. Whatever you are communicating, you have to communicate exactly in such way. So for that particular reason, what we normally do is if there's certain things like Amazon or certain things like search or any pattern we have, we normally give it in the form of variables. So to store any data or here, this are called everything is elements because these are web elements means background. If you go and inspect in the HTML code, all these are web elements. If you click on this, it's going to show this. If you're going to click on this, it's going to show the next one. If you are going to click on this, it will show this. So if you're going to click on this, it will show what is the element it's tagging along with. So all these web elements or anything to store this thing or to store any results or to store any inputs that we are going to give. Like here we are going to give iPhone. So to store any of since see any data is not stable. So we are going to search with multiple data. For that we are going to use variables. So and the data might not be stable. Here it might be a string, it might be a number or anything. Based on that, you have to learn two concepts called variables and data types. So the whole and sole purpose of that is storing a dynamic data and element locators or capturing or managing test results or handling input or working with any type of data. For that, we need variables and data types. Okay, any doubts? That's the first topic we are going to discuss. That is basic concept. Those are variables and data types. So, what is a variable? So, specifically for Python or any language, what is a variable? Variable is nothing but okay. Variable is nothing but as anything, any name. You give any name, like you can give name itself. You can give name, you can give number, anything. It might be any name which stores, which holds any sort of value. Means if I give name equals to 10, it's holding value. Here I'm going to give number as Ram. It's going to hold some value. Anything, any name that holds a value is a variable. So basically the function of any variable is to store the data or manipulate it. Here I'll give name equals to 10 and future I'll change it to okay now the name is not 10, name equals to 20. Here I give number equals to Ram. In future I'll give number equals to something else. So anything which holds any sort of value is called a variable. But each variable has it's a dynamic. Dynamic here means it can be changeable and reusable. So that sort of a thing is called as dynamic. Okay. So so okay, fine. So anything. So why normally? Okay, simply saying, I'll use all the example which will be used in Playwright itself. So to test any application, we might need URL. So that's the what to test, where to test your application. So URL can be anything like www.google.com. So now you're storing in the URL. The name is URL. You're storing URL. If somebody asks in the anywhere in the code or the program, wherever they talk about URL, they are talking about www.google.com. If they say that uh, navigate to URL in, suppose the action is navigate to URL in Google, means open the www.google.com in Google Chrome. That was the action. That means they won't say that. They'll say navigate to URL in Google. That means navigate to www.google.com in Google. Okay. Or else they'll do next action like so. Once you're not navigating to somewhere, like let's not confuse ourselves. Let's say Facebook. You're opening URL. That means Facebook on in Google. So that's it. So uh, I'm storing URL as Facebook. I'm opening it in Google. Then what is the action? Navigate into URL is stored in variable. Now page dot go to. You don't have to remember this now. I'm just giving it as an example in Playwright. This is the code normally that navigate to URL in google.com. Okay. Then if you're opening Facebook, you need to log in. So to log something, you need to have what? Credentials. So for that credential, to use those credential at exact place, you need to first define them. You're going to define them using define credentials using variables. So username will be username and password will be password. So these kind of things, wherever I'm storing data, I'm storing URLs, I'll be storing in future, I'll be storing something. So whenever you are in such a place that it might be any data which might be dynamic or reusable throughout the code or throughout your test, such sort of a thing, you have to define them in variable, that is instantiate them and initialize them. Means giving some value to them. That's how you're going to use variable. So that's the main reason. Variables are used for only three reasons. That is code reusability and improved readability. So everywhere you don't have to say that navigate to URL, you'll say, but everywhere you don't have to say navigate to www.facebook.com in Google. You don't have to say such thing. It will make you easy, improved. Everywhere people will think you're using URL means they'll go and search here itself. So in future, if you don't want to test on www.facebook.com, you can change it. It will be easy. Instead of changing it in 100 place, as you gave the value here, you can change it in one place itself. That's the first thing. So variable. Next one is data types. Python has several data types. The first one is obviously everyone know string. So a string is nothing but a sequence of characters. Of Means nothing but text. So anything which is in between inverted commas, the quotes, you can say those are nothing but strings. Strings is nothing but just a sequence of characters. So anything, anything which you need to exactly communicate, like suppose URL is not going to change. Any input values are not going to change. Any selectors are not going to change. So any such sort of thing. So any data which you want to change. So in such sort of a situation, we are going to use string. So like we don't want to change URLs or credentials. That's- So strings actually in Playwright, strings allow you to compare actual values with expected values, which is essential for assertion in test. Why it is so important to and everything? Because as I said, any data which you don't want to change in our own perspective, I'm not saying what universal, in our own perspective, uh, when we compare test results, we don't want it to change. We want exact, actual, and expected. So to compare that, you have to keep the actual value as a string and compare it with the expected value. That gives you whatever you desire. So that was data type. One, that is string. So obviously, first one is done. The second one is integer. So integer is nothing but, in mathematical terms, we can say that a whole number without a decimal point is an integer in our perspective. So where do you use normally integers is in Playwright. Normally we use, if I recall, suppose you want to try any action repeatedly, or you want to run any number of loops, you're going to use integers normally. Or if you want to, in this particular thing like Amazon, you want to see prices, you want to see ratings or anything, how it should be. Is it updating or not? Your suppose there are 6575 ratings. So what you'll do, you'll design a test in such a manner that you'll post a comment whether this is updating or not. So you're going to check with the multiple price and retry counts and everything. So these are sort of things where we are going to use integers, or you can use in many places. So how you are going to, this is how string is written. So in the same way, I'll say retries count, then 3. That's how you're going to define integer. So what is the next one? Data type is Boolean. So Boolean is the data type that holds true or false. So you are going to assert anything, like there is a conditional statement, or you are going to assert something, or you're going to have a conditional statement like if certain thing conditions, like if you see, what I'll do is search iPhone 13 one 128 GB or not. What is the thing which should be in the heading? iPhone should be present, 128 GB should be present, and everything. So every results which are in this should have two terms. One is iPhone, the other one is 13 and 128 GB. So you'll give a condition that okay, my test case is in such a way that okay, each and every time if I have to search a result, I have to buy. See, as a human, we know that okay, we need to buy iPhone 13, but system doesn't know that. So it will go and if you want to randomly select from anything, it will go and randomly select it. But there is high chance that if the code is not properly written or there might be a bug, there might be apart from iPhone 13. See here, this iPhone 16 is also in this. So we don't want to our test cases like only selecting iPhone 13. There is iPhone 16. If you select this, it won't satisfy the criteria. You can't make a mistake and come back. So what you will do, you will assert a statement that if, or what you'll say, if in this particular heading, if you find iPhone 13 and 128, then click on it. If not, don't click on it. That's how you're going to use a boolean. Means whatever you keep in a brackets, like those. In how you write in Python is visible. Is visible is a condition, is a statement, and you see page dot is dot is visible. What should be visible? My phone 128 GB. So if it is visible, then you can make a condition like if loop, if statement, like if is visible, and you're going to give a call. That's so we are going to discuss about if loops and all the conditional loops and everything. If, so don't worry about it. I'm just giving you an application that nothing where you're going to learn or you do. It will always have an application. So like in that page, you're going to click what whichever has that iPhone 128 GB. So if this statement is true, you're going to click it. If this statement is not true, you're not going to click it. So that's what it says. Is visible is nothing but in the page. If this is not visible, you're not going to click on that particular thing. So that's where you're going to use your boolean. Booleans is nothing but it enables any conditional logics, allows the scripts to respond dynamically based on application state. So if the application does not give you iPhone 128 GB, it's going to give false, and then you need not try this. If any of means suppose in your inventory or in your shop in Amazon, if there is no iPhone 128 GB, you need not click or test it. So based on the availability of the particular thing, particular object or particular thing in your own application, this is going to vary. The condition is going to vary. It might be true, it might be false. So next is list. So list is nothing but you know arrays. So similarly in Java or anything arrays, here it's list. List is nothing but a collection of items which include multiple any type of data value. It might be string, it might be integer, it might be anything. Any type of data value can hold, which can be include any multiple values of data type. So list is nothing but collection of items. Like if you want to test multiple usernames, you want to test how you're going to, you don't have to give each and every time, you don't have to write 10 times the code saying that username is this, I'll write the whole code, username is this, I'll write the whole code, username is this, I'm going to write whole code. You're not going to do in that way. You're going to store everything in one place. That's where you're going to use list. See, that's one of the application. So in the similar way, the one, user two, user three. So these are the three usernames you're going to store in this way and using for loop. You're going to pass, how you're going to pass, use for loop, we'll discuss. So right now I'm saying that to hold multiple applications, or sorry, to hold multiple data, you're going to use list. So even results also you're going to use multiple times. So only thing is list allows you to iterate over multiple items, which is especially helpful for you running the same test with different data inputs. That means to enable data driven testing, you need list. That is fourth one. And the fifth one is dictionary. So now what normally happens is, suppose here there is a username, but how can somebody know that this username, so this username and the password, the batch of the password you are going to give next, here you give username, next you are going to give password. So you're going to give three passwords saying that okay, this will be pass one, saying this will be pass two, this will be pass three. What normally you'll do is, okay, you're going to say that whatever the first one, you are going to use indexes, you are going to say that user now one's password is user in the password variable. What is the first one is? Past one is the password of user one. Past two is the password of username. You're going to give based on saying that. Okay, like you're going to say normally. So I'm going to say you're going to write a code which says this based on the index, what is the username of this is the password of this. You're going to say in this. So if you go through it, it is a little bit complicated saying that okay, the compiler has to read through this, the compiler has to read through this, and then lead to all the logic and say that okay, first it has to read username and then it has to read password. So see, any code is optimized or refactored in because of two reasons. One is time, next one is memory. Because time is money, memory is money. So memory means more space. It requires means more amount of money you're going to spend to get that memory. And more time means if an application is going to take much time, that means nothing but you're equating if a automation test is going to take 1 day and a manual test is going to take 1 day, then there's of no use. So it has to lessen the time. So any application, anything, something like from cycle to from jets or planes or rockets. Why we evolve that much means the cycle you can't go to space in the space or everything, or from cycle to car. Why we evolve means we want to stay save time in the same manner to better our thing to store the data in a better way to save some time. They have went to dictionary. Dictionary is nothing but here the values are stored as key value pairs. Like suppose if you take user creds, is a thing you are going to save it in. You're going to use flower brackets. You're going to say username is at the same space in the same place. You're going to say user nothing but user one and password. You're going to say so. Here, when you see that dictionary here, it's directly saying that for this particular thing, creds username is user1 and password is pass1. So whenever it reads from here and directly enters into the wherever you want. You can directly enter because you have a direction here. So you can directly say that go from this, go and pick whatever the username value. You can pick that, you will get it. Password, you can get this value, and you can directly use them wherever you want. You don't have to go learn or do all the set up all the logic and waste your time. So dictionaries are mainly used to hold complex test data, where each key value pair represents a specific field or setting. Like you can use here QA environment is this. For that QA environment, this is the password or this is the port number. You can use for multiple settings. This is here I'm using for login information. We can use for test configurations or storing dynamic data. You can use for many things. So dictionaries provide a way to store multiple related values in an organized way. Make it easy to pass structure the data into functions or like page objects. Okay. So any doubts? Okay. So one we are done with data types and variables. The next important thing you need to learn is functions. So what is functions? Anyone? No one? So the next important thing is functions. Functions is nothing but any reusable. A reusable block of code is called function. Any reusable units is called function. Why you need to learn functions? So if you see any function like okay, so one thing is always for a core reusability or readability or maintenance, this is a word you're going to listen many times, but let's not go in that way. Let's think in certain way that okay, so there is one test where you need to log. You are going to do two things. Is one, you're going to say search. So first, for anything, suppose for anything, you have only one browser, that is Chrome. You are testing it on Facebook. So each and every time to test any feature of Facebook, what you are going to do? First, you are going to open Google browser. Next, open Google. The next thing you are going to do is navigate to URL. These are the two things. Next, you are going to go login. Then you are going to search. So since you are testing search functionality, you're going to search and then you're going to log out and close the browser. So this was the first test. So when somebody is testing search, each and every time he need to open Google and navigate to URL, then he need to log in, search, log out, close the browser and stop there. So if somebody else is performing a test on like button or share button, what is going to do? It's going to repeat everything. Going to perform the action on share button and repeat everything. So it's basic common sense that if you are going to repeat any action multiple times, it's better to automate it. Means instead of writing the code 100 times, write only once the code and use that block of code somewhere wherever it is necessary. So each and every time you are going to open Google, so the steps involved in Google, write a code, write a function block of code, then navigate to URL, write it, then search, write it, log out, close the browser, everything. If you write it, you're going to reuse it. Such sort of a thing is nothing but functions. Functions are nothing but a a reusable block of code that performs a specific task. So functions are central to writing any efficient and modular code. When I say modular code is the code which is modularized means suppose here I have written each and every step. So but in whole, if you see it as a test scenario, what the test scenario is going to be? Test scenario is going to be verify, search, functionality. This is one line of a code, but for this action needed to be performed, you have to divide it in many parts. I normally call it as nodes. What is why I call it as a nodes is so nodes are points where anything can happen. Like when you try to open Google, because of browsers or anything, Google might crash, or you don't have supported Google or supported code which supports the Google you have to open. It can go wrong. Next, navigating URL. So you might search Facebook. Somebody might brought the Facebook URL. It might redirect to something. So here something might go wrong. Login, something might go wrong because you might enter wrong password, wrong username, or something. So every point where something is going to go bad or something other than what is expected functionality can happen, I keep them as nodes. Each and every node, from node to node, it is a model or a module which you are going to test or perform or write the code about. So to write such modular code, you need function. So using functions in Playwright is functions are particularly used for common browser interactions like um, opening the Google or navigating or login or something like that. So one of the things is here itself, you know, functions are used to navigate. Functions are used to log in. Next. So since if something goes good or bad, what we normally do is in test, we normally attach screenshots. So attaching screenshots means, see, anywhere, how to take a screenshot, the functionality will be same. The application might differ. So, but the action which you are going to do is application independent. So, so that's what. Taking screenshots also comes under that. So these are some sort of functions where you're going to use. So you have to understand that functions because when you're going to design the framework, you're going to say each and every modular code or each and every function is which will go and make into a different class. See, you yesterday we have discussed the thing called uh, okay, if you can see. Actually, when we discussed about this, we have discussed each and every component. Like there will be a configuration file setup, test management, and test execution configuration, login, and page class creation, and everything. So here, when you are going to set up each and everything, this is where the directions are, but you don't know much about the files. So what are the things or the configuration files you're going to use? You don't know much about that. For that, so what makes a configuration file? So all the components of a configuration file will go and make into a one whole folder. So here the functions makes the classes. Here the functions makes the classes. So whatever the modules you are going to make, those will turn out into the classes. Opening a Google might be a class. Navigating function might be a class or a method. Login might be something like that. So this is where you're going to use it in future. How you're going to if you want to make a framework. So am I clear until now? Okay. So now the next thing we are going to learn about is, see, I'm exactly giving, since we need variables to store data, next we need functions to run it. The next thing is going to be file handling. So today what I'll do, I'll explain them. Tomorrow we'll write the code based on the how to store a variable, how to write a functional code, how to do file handling. I'm going to explain only the concepts today. Tomorrow we'll write a code based on whatever we know. How to build a code, I'll show. How to write a code. What should be kept in mind while you write a code. I'll explain about those tomorrow. So, what are the files we normally handle? Like yesterday we discussed, to get any test data, we either get from CSV or we get from database, we get from any external files. But see, as as our system has some or other driver or some other software or tool to read those database or CSV or external files, in the same way your project need to have that capacity to read these files. So means it should have a file handling capacity to read CSV, to know the data from CSV. It need to have a file handling capacity to read the data from database. or external files like JSON. So test data can be stored in any of them and loaded into test script dynamically. So to do that, you need to have file handling. So it enables you to run tests with various inputs without changing the code. So if you, for each and every data input, if you change the code, it's not time. It's not time if not using time efficiently. So if you write one code where it can handle any set of data, any number of of data without changing any code. See, one golden rule is from starting to now I follow is whatever code you write, it should be application independent. If you write a code which is application means like you have to divide your framework, separate your framework from the actual application or test layer. When you do that, what happens each and every time you introduce any new application or feature, you don't have to change your code base because it's not dependent on the application, it is independent on the application. Then the test layer which is independent of the application, it you don't have to change much. So that's the reason you have to give all the tools which are necessary to do the test in framework and keep the test layer separately, and whatever related to like data which is needed you are going to provide in the test layer itself. So file handling to this test data, what if you read this number of files, if you have capacity, we can enable data driven testing. Or so, there will be test-driven development, data-driven development, or testing. So, what is a data-driven testing? If you see, if somebody asks you what is a data-driven testing, you are going to say only one thing is from the actual framework. If you separate data, means data is driving the testing. So when you need to drive, you're not part of the suppose a driver is driving a bus, driver is not part of the bus, is an outside person who's taking the initiation and giving that particular bus a path. In the similar way, data is driving the testing by giving the dynamical data or passing the dynamical data from varied files, external files. So that is one where you are going to have file reading. See how you're going to retrieve the data from the file is the capacity you're going to give. The next one is if you're having a capacity to read, then have a capacity to write. That means reporting. You have to have a file handling capacity to write reports or test logs for documentation. Okay, so those are the things. So what are the three things we need to have? Like for opening a file, we have to understand how to open a file. What are the three things we need to understand for any file? We have to understand how to opening a file. Next, reading a file. Next, third thing, writing a file. Next, fourth, closing a file. If you know all these four things in Python code, you know file handling capacity. There's nothing to learn at all. These four things you are done with. You can handle any file like anything. But you need to understand for everything, you need to know what is how to open a file, how to read a file, how to write a file, how to close a file. That's it. Anything will be depend on these four. This is how you are going to modularize it. So that's what we are going to learn. So in data types or functions or anything, it's going to be segregated in this way. Okay. I think so. Our time is up. I started a little late. Tomorrow I'll be on time. I'll test my mic beforehand itself. So any doubts?